Hey guys, Samo here. Hope everyone is doing okay. Just wanted to post this video. I was extremely saddened by the news that the great Ralph Towner passed away on the 18th of January, and especially, since I'm a guitarist, and he's been a heavy influence on myself as a composer and a guitarist, and I just wanted to share some thoughts about Ralph. I've been fortunate enough to play with many musicians that played with Ralph, playing with Ariel Anderson, the bass player, and the great Paul McCandless from Oregon, and all these guys shared some incredible stories about Ralph and how important he was, and what an amazing composer. Many times I believe in realm of jazz composition, he was quite uh, forgotten. Also in many of the downbeat polls or whatever so-called rankings, Ralph seemed to be forgotten in the guitar world, even though he's probably one of the most recognizable voices on guitar if we talk about jazz guitar in general. And he had a specific style. One of the most important guys to introduce the 12-string guitar, probably next to Leo Kottke, who was amazing, and just Ralph had a specific style of playing, which was kind of almost emulating piano. Of course, he was a monster piano player, as probably everyone knows, and so many great albums he did. I mean, probably his entire catalog of his solo stuff, he stayed all his time on ECM Records, the amazing Munich label by Manfred Eicher, and all the records are just superb, especially the duos with John Abercrombie, Sargasso Sea, and 5 years later. Some of my favorite albums, Old Friends, New Friends. I love Kenny Wheeler on that one, and Eddie Gomez, Michael DePasca, and David Darlin. Batik, another one of my favorites, with Eddie on bass, and one of the greatest drummers who sadly also passed away, Jack DeJohnette on drums. That's a monster album if you don't know it. And I mentioned Ariel before, Anderson, and they did a beautiful album, Ariel on bass, Nana Vasconcelos on percussion, and Ralph on 12-string guitars and acoustic guitar. If you look far enough, that's from 1993. A monstrous album. Of course, his Solstice group from mid-70s with Jan Garbarek and one of the best rhythm sections you can imagine, Eberhard Weber on bass and Jon Christensen on drums. So, and then late in kind of in the 90s, 1990s and 2000s, he was mostly playing solo guitar, doing some stuff also with the great trumpet player Paolo Fresu, and of course the trio with Slava Grigoryan and Wolfgang Mutspiel from A Dream, a beautiful guitar record. And the last one he did, it was At First Light on ECM, a fantastic solo guitar recording. And one of the first records I heard by Ralph was Solo Concert from 1980, and this is just such a good album, and especially changed my view on the 12-string guitar, that you can actually not just strum it, but you can actually play some stuff on that instrument. And then of course there's Oregon, probably one of the most important fusion groups ever. I believe when we talk about fusion, we many times talk about Return to Forever, Mahavishnu, Brecker Brothers, and all these important 1970s jazz fusion groups. And Oregon was actually also one of the first groups. Let's not forget Gary Burton, Miles, and Larry Coryell. But Oregon, in a different kind of fusion, if those guys really pumped it up with rock, Oregon mixed it with classical music and with world music and with different non-jazz traditions. And it was just that first crew was incredible, with Glenn Moore on bass and Colin Walcott on tabla and sitar and various percussions, and Ralph on piano and guitar, and Paul, my dear friend, on oboe and bass clarinet and soprano saxophone, and all those guys played all the instruments. And just those early Vanguard albums, Distant Hills and Winterlight, those are monstrous albums that any lover of music should check out. Also including then the later ECM albums, you know, Oregon Crossing and Ecotopia, and which are also beautiful, sadly without Colin, um, especially later from 86, 87 on. And Trilok joined the group, which was a completely different vibe. First they did some concerts in trio as well, and then of course Mark Walker came on percussion, and lately Glenn left the band, and Paulina, another dear friend of mine, on double bass, joined the group, and they did so many beautiful albums. Oregon, definitely, I guess every one of you who's checking this out knows about Oregon, but let's spread the word about Ralph and Oregon. And like I said, a monster composer. All those beautiful tunes he wrote, like Water Wheel and Silence of a Candle, such a masterful composition. And I believe everyone should check out Ralph, and at least his music is still alive, and just, you know, put on Silence of a Candle these days, and or listen to a nice record by Ralph or Oregon. And rest in peace, Maestro, and long live your music. Ciao, guys.